question is, when staring at your big goal and it seems like a massive elephant that you can't conquer, what will you do? Well, that's the question, and this podcast, Eat Your Elephant, is here to help you to find the answer that will keep you moving forward and making progress. Because you can eat your elephant one bite at a time. I'm your host, Nick Macy, and let's dive right in. Well, hello there. Glad you're here. Glad you're listening in. Welcome to Eat Your Elephant podcast. Today, we're talking about how to make gains where you want now. That sounds amazing, if I don't say so myself. But before you go starting to think this is some sort of quick fix miracle cure, it's not. It's basically, you still have to do the work, but it's a simple framework so that you can begin to make progress where you want to make progress. Achieving any big goal, it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of work. You just have to do that. But don't waste time and effort, energy, attention, and focus and all those great things on not going in the direction that you want to go. So, if you want to make gains where you want now, then first decide where you want to improve. Not every area of life is going to be critically important to everybody. It's just not the case. We're all different. We're all unique. And I've talked about this in a few episodes where, you have to decide what's really important to you. Now, there's kind of two things that I want you to think about when you're thinking about what area of life are important to you. And first of all, is priority. Some things are just important. Like it might be family, let's say. Okay, if family's really important to you, then that's a high priority. It just is. Now, it might be family, it might be finances or your health. There's a lot of great things in life that might be very important to you, and other things that might not be as important to you. So I want you to think about the priority before you start to just take action. What area of life do you want to improve? Now, there's priority, there's also urgency. Some things are urgent. Even if the area of life is not like your main goal in life to be physically fit. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to be your priority. But if you're in a situation where it's urgent, where there's a need for that area to be improved quickly because of where you might be at right now, then it might be urgent. And sometimes urgent things can be important. You definitely won't be the only person that receives some sort of health news or had some discomfort, so they went to the doctor and realized, oh, hey, I need to do something about this issue now. Well, then it becomes urgent. So take into consideration urgency and priority. Like, family is really important to me. But if I let my finances get so out of control that they needed to be a key focus because it was urgent for me to be able to take care of the priority, sometimes you have to take care of the urgent. All right. Now, I know that was really quick brush over on deciding what area of life you want to improve. But you can visit nickmazy.com and search for life areas and find more resources on determining which areas of life you want to improve. And once you know where you want to improve, this next one is critical. Pick your next step. So focusing on the next step, what's the next step for where you're at right now? That's huge. It's huge. It's so important because it's too easy to get wrapped up in the things down the road. The big picture. All right. So knowing and really focusing on and seeing what you want that outcome to be like and what you want to experience, that can be a great motivating factor. When you see, being physically fit or having your finances where you want them to be, or a great relationship with your family or your community, any of these things, seeing that end result that you're working toward can help you to keep working toward it. But if you focus too much on the long term, that end result way down the road, you'll lose sight of that next step. And there's no possible way that you're going to get to step number 12 or 15 if you don't take 1 and 2. So what's the next step for where you're at right now? See, if you're in debt up to your eyeballs, then you might not worry about starting an investment portfolio and which type of managed funds would be best for you. So, or, if you're really overweight, you might not want to spend too much time worrying about the difference between juicing different types of red kale. It's a little bit, those are kind of granular examples, focusing on the specific things that are going to be effective later on and missing the next steps for right now. So, key piece of advice that I have for you, that honestly I try to do in my life, is keep it simple. Don't make it more complicated. Don't get really granular when you're really just needing to focus on, what the next step is, and you're worried too much about a detail that could happen later on. I said this is one thing that I try to work on a lot, is just keeping it simple so that I know the next step. And knowing the exact next step that you need to take makes it a lot easier. It really, really does. So try not to get distracted by the things that you'll need to know or do far down the road. Because there's plenty of steps you'll take later, but they come later. What you need to do now is what will get you to what you can do later. And I know it sounds like I'm making this really sound really like it should be easy. My point is that the simpler you make it, the easier it will be. Maybe not easy, but easier, yes. And having the next step laid out, that's one thing that I focus on a lot in the Conquer Your Morning little checklist that I use sometimes. And it's just me writing out exactly what I'm going to do. And when I know that next step, it makes it easier. Not always easy, but easier than not having that next step planned. So with that, what's a simple milestone that you're going to work toward? Now, it makes sense for where you're at right now. Okay. For the important area in your life, what's that next milestone? Then what is the next step you can take from where you're at right now to get there? Just the next step. It's not the step that's going to take you all the way to your goal. It's just the next step, the next thing to do, the next small thing, the small task that you need to do to get a little bit closer. Write that down and do it. That's it. Because once you do it, you're making progress. And you keep making progress. Before you know it, you've traveled a long way to get to your goal, and you're just getting closer and closer, and you're making things happen. You're conquering your goals because you keep taking steps and you keep making progress. So here's to you conquering your goal by just taking the next step. Well, thanks for listening to the Eat Your Elephant podcast. That's today's episode. If you like the podcast, please share it with somebody. And I'll talk to you again soon.